Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something real tonight. See, the world don't always tell your worth out loud. Sometimes people decide your value by watching how you move, how you act, and what you allow. And if you're not careful, you'll teach people to treat you less than what you deserve without ever saying a word. I learned this the hard way, and I'm here to make sure you don't have to. First thing you got to understand is this: how you handle your time is how people measure your value. If you're always available, always saying yes, always putting yourself last, people won't respect your time and they won't respect you. See, your time is your life. Every minute you give away is something you'll never get back. When you start being intentional about where your time goes, when you stop entertaining things that don't serve your purpose, people notice. You don't have to announce it. They just feel it. High-value people don't chase time, they protect it. And when you start doing that, you silently tell the world, I matter. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you deeper into something that most people overlook. But it's shaping your life every single day without you even realizing it. Your time, the way you treat it, the way you give it, the way you protect it, that right there is one of the loudest statements you make about your worth. And the truth is, people are always watching. They may not say nothing, but they see everything. You see, when you're constantly available for everybody, when you drop what you're doing the moment somebody calls, when you keep saying yes, even when it costs you your peace, you might think you're being kind, you might think you're being helpful. But what you're really doing is teaching people that your time is not valuable. And if your time ain't valuable, then in their mind, neither are you. That's a hard truth, but it's a necessary one. I had to learn this myself. There was a time in my life when I was saying yes to everything. Every request, every opportunity, every distraction. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought being busy meant I was getting closer to success. But all I was doing was spreading myself so thin that I had nothing left for what truly mattered. I was tired, frustrated, and stuck. And then it hit me, just because something asks for your time doesn't mean it deserves your time. See, time is the one thing God gave you that you can never get back. Money, you can lose it and make it again. Opportunities, they come and go. But time, once it's gone forever. So every time you say yes to something that doesn't align with your purpose, you're saying no to something that could change your life. And most people don't even realize they're making that trade. Now let me tell you what happens when you start valuing your time differently. When you begin to say no to things that drain you, when you stop overcommitting, when you become intentional about where your energy goes, people notice. At first, they might not like it. Oh yeah, they'll question you. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you're acting different. But what they're really saying is, I can't access you the way I used to. And that's exactly the point. Because when you respect your own time, you force other people to respect it too. You don't have to demand it. You don't have to argue for it. Your actions speak louder than anything you could ever say. When you stop being available all the time, your presence becomes valuable. When you're not always around, people start appreciating the moments you are. Scarcity creates value, and that applies to your time just as much as anything else. And let me be clear about something. Protecting your time is not about being rude. It's not about ignoring people. And it's not about thinking you're better than anyone else. It's about understanding that your life has a purpose, and your time is the currency that funds that purpose. You can't afford to spend it carelessly. Every hour you waste on things that don't matter is an hour taken away from your growth, your dreams, your future. You got to start asking yourself some real questions. Is this worth my time? Is this helping me grow? Is this moving me closer to the life I want? And if the answer is no, then you got to have the strength to walk away from it, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it disappoints people. Because at the end of the day, you're not responsible for managing everybody else's expectations. You're responsible for managing your own life. Successful people understand this at a different level. They don't just manage time, they guard it. They treat it like something precious, something sacred. They don't let just anything or anyone interrupt their focus. And that's why they're able to build, to grow, to achieve at a level most people only dream about. It's not because they have more time than you, they just use it better. And when you start doing the same thing, something powerful happens inside you. You begin to feel more in control, more focused, more aligned. You stop feeling overwhelmed because you're no longer trying to do everything for everyone. Instead, you're doing the right things for yourself. And that shift, that quiet decision to take your time seriously, it changes how you see yourself. Because now you're no longer reacting to life, you're directing it. You're no longer letting people decide your schedule, you're deciding what matters. And that's when your worth begins to rise, not just in the eyes of others, but in your own heart. And I'm telling you right now, once you reach that point, you'll never go back. Ladies and gentlemen, let me talk to you about something that can change your entire life if you truly understand it, the way you respond to disrespect. Not the way you talk about it, not the way you feel about it, but the way you respond in the moment when somebody crosses a line with you. Because right there, in that exact moment, you are teaching people how to treat you without saying a single word. Now listen to me carefully, because this is where a lot of people get it wrong. They think ignoring disrespect makes them the bigger person. They think staying quiet, laughing it off, or brushing it aside keeps the peace. But what they don't realize is, every time you tolerate something that goes against your value, you are silently giving permission for it to happen again. You are setting a standard, and that standard is lower than what you actually deserve. I've seen it happen over and over again. People stay in situations where they are not respected because they're afraid of conflict. They don't want to seem difficult. They don't want to lose relationships, so they keep quiet. They let things slide. They tell themselves, it's not a big deal. But let me tell you something. It becomes a big deal when it keeps happening. And it keeps happening because you never showed where the line was. See, respect is not something you beg for. It's not something you negotiate. It's something you demonstrate. And you demonstrate it by what you allow and what you refuse to accept. If someone speaks to you in a way that diminishes you, and you say nothing, they learn that it's okay. If someone takes advantage of your kindness and you keep giving without boundaries, they learn that you are available for exploitation. Not because they're bad people necessarily, but because you never corrected the behavior. Now let me explain something else, because this is important. Standing up for yourself does not mean being loud, aggressive, or disrespectful in return. A lot of people think they have to match energy with energy, but that's not strength, that's reaction. Real strength is calm. Real strength is controlled. It's being able to look someone in the eye and say, without raising your voice, that's not okay with me. And then standing on that, no matter what, because when you respond with calm confidence, you do two things at once. First, you protect your dignity. You show that you respect yourself enough not to accept less. And second, you send a clear message that you are not someone who can be easily pushed around. That kind of energy makes people pause. It makes them think twice before crossing you again. Not because you scared them, but because they recognize your boundaries are real. Let me tell you something else. People will test you. Oh yeah, they will. Not always in obvious ways, sometimes in small ways. A joke that goes too far, a comment that feels off, a situation where they take more than they give. And in those small moments, your response matters more than you think. Because those little tests, they build the pattern, and the pattern becomes your reality. If you pass those tests by standing firm, by addressing things early, by showing that you are aware and unwilling to tolerate disrespect, the pattern becomes one of respect. But if you fail those tests by staying silent, by letting things slide, by hoping it won't happen again, the pattern becomes one of disrespect. And once that pattern is set, it's much harder to change. Now I know some of you are thinking, but what if I lose people? Let me tell you something, you will. You absolutely will. When you start setting boundaries, when you start demanding respect through your actions, some people will fall away. But those are the people who benefited from you having no boundaries. Those are the people who were comfortable with you being less than who you really are. Losing them is not a loss, it's a release. Because the right people, the ones who truly respect you, they won't have a problem with your standards. In fact, they'll appreciate them. They'll adjust. They'll meet you where you stand. And those are the relationships you want in your life. Relationships built on mutual respect, not silent tolerance. And here's the most powerful part of all this. When you start responding to disrespect the right way, something changes inside you. You begin to see yourself differently. You stop doubting your worth. You stop questioning whether you deserve better. Because every time you stand up for yourself, you are reinforcing the belief that you matter. It's not about winning arguments. It's not about proving a point. It's about protecting your value. It's about making sure that no matter where you go, no matter who you deal with, you are never placed in a position where you feel small, unheard, or disrespected. And I'm telling you, once you master that, once you truly understand that your response sets the standard, you will never allow yourself to be treated less than what you are ever again. That's power. Quiet, controlled, undeniable power. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you into something deeper now. The way you carry yourself when nobody is clapping for you, when there's no spotlight, no recognition, no applause. Because this right here, this is where your real worth is built. Not when everything is going right, not when people are praising you, but when it's quiet, when it's hard, when it feels like nobody even sees you. See, a lot of people base their confidence on validation. They feel good when they're complimented, when they're winning, when things are going their way. But the moment that disappears, so does their belief in themselves. And that's dangerous, because it means your identity is in the hands of other people. It means you need someone else to confirm what you should already know about yourself. I learned that confidence doesn't come from applause, it comes from alignment. It comes from knowing who you are, what you stand for, and where you're going, regardless of who's watching. Because let me tell you something, most of your journey is going to be walked alone. Most of your growth is going to happen in silence. And if you can't carry yourself with belief during those moments, you'll quit before you ever reach where you're supposed to be. There are going to be days when you're putting in work and nobody notices. Days when you're trying your best and it still doesn't seem like enough. Days when it feels like everybody else is moving ahead while you're stuck in the same place. And in those moments, it's easy to doubt yourself. It's easy to question your path. It's easy to slow down or even give up. But this is where your true character shows. This is where you separate yourself from the average mindset. Because average people need constant encouragement to keep going. They need results to stay motivated. But people who understand their worth, they move differently. They keep showing up even when it's hard. They stay consistent even when it's boring. They believe in themselves even when there's no evidence yet. That kind of belief is powerful. It's not loud, it's not flashy, but it's steady. It doesn't shake every time something goes wrong. It doesn't disappear just because things are taking longer than expected. It's built on something deeper than temporary emotions. It's built on self-awareness. And let me tell you something else. People can feel that energy. You don't have to say a word about how confident you are. You don't have to convince anyone of your value. The way you walk, the way you speak, the way you handle situations, it all reflects what you believe about yourself. And when you truly believe in your worth, it shows in everything you do. You walk into a room differently. You don't shrink yourself to fit in. You don't look around for approval. You don't change who you are just to make other people comfortable. Instead, you stand firm in your identity. You move with purpose. You speak with clarity. And even if nobody says it out loud, people notice. They respect it. But here's the thing, it doesn't happen overnight. This kind of confidence is built over time through discipline, through consistency, through showing up for yourself again and again. It's built in those moments when you don't feel like it, but you do it anyway. It's built when you keep your word to yourself, when you follow through on your commitments, when you refuse to quit even when it's uncomfortable. Because every time you do that, you're sending a message to yourself. You're saying, I can trust me. I believe in me. I'm not going to abandon myself. And that internal trust, that's where real confidence comes from. Not from what people say about you, but from what you prove to yourself. Now let me be real with you. There will be times when you feel invisible. Times when it feels like your efforts don't matter. Times when you question if it's even worth it. But you have to understand, just because nobody is clapping doesn't mean you're not making progress. Just because nobody sees it doesn't mean it's not happening. Growth is not always visible. Success is not always immediate. But if you stay consistent, if you keep carrying yourself with belief, if you keep doing the work when it's quiet, eventually it will show. And when it does, people will call it confidence. They'll call it success. They'll call it talent. But what they won't see is the silent work, the unseen effort, the moments when you kept going without any recognition. And that's what makes it real. That's what makes it lasting. Because when your confidence is built in silence, it doesn't break in noise. When it comes from within, it doesn't depend on anything outside of you. And that's the kind of presence that commands respect without ever demanding it. So carry yourself like you already know your worth, even when nobody else sees it yet. Ladies and gentlemen, let me give you something that might be hard to hear, but it's going to change your life if you truly accept it. What you tolerate will always speak louder than what you say you deserve. You can talk about your worth all day long. You can post about it, you can declare it. You can even convince yourself that you believe it. But at the end of the day, your life will reflect not what you say, but what you accept. See, a lot of people are living in contradiction. They say they want respect, but they tolerate disrespect. They say they want honesty, but they stay around lies. They say they want growth, but they remain in environments that keep them stuck. And the truth is, the world is not confused by your words. It responds to your standards. And your standards are revealed by what you allow to continue in your life. I had to learn that lesson the hard way. There were moments when I knew deep down something wasn't right. Situations where I felt undervalued, overlooked, even disrespected. But instead of walking away, I stayed. I made excuses. I told myself things would change. I told myself I could handle it. And every time I did that, I was sending a message, not just to others, but to myself, that this is acceptable. And once something becomes acceptable, it becomes normal. And once it becomes normal, it becomes your reality. That's how people get stuck in cycles. Not because they don't know better, but because they don't act on what they know. They keep tolerating things that go against their value, hoping one day it will magically improve. But let me tell you something. Things don't change until you change what you're willing to accept. Now listen to me carefully, because this is where your power comes in. The moment you decide that you will no longer tolerate what doesn't align with your worth, everything begins to shift. Not overnight, not instantly, but it starts with a decision. A firm, clear decision that says, I deserve better, and I'm no longer going to settle for less. And that decision is not proven by words, it's proven by action. It's proven the first time you walk away from something that no longer respects you, even when it's hard. It's proven when you choose peace over familiarity, when you choose growth over comfort, when you choose self-respect over temporary attachment. Because let me tell you, walking away is not easy. It requires strength. It requires clarity. It requires you to let go of what you've gotten used to, even if it's been hurting you. But here's the truth. Every time you stay in something that diminishes you, you lose a piece of yourself. And over time, that loss adds up. You start questioning your value. You start lowering your expectations. You start believing that maybe this is all you deserve. And that right there is the real danger. Because once you believe you deserve less, you stop reaching for more. But when you make the decision to stop tolerating less, something powerful happens. You reclaim your standards. You rebuild your identity. You remind yourself that your worth is not negotiable. And from that point on, your actions begin to reflect that belief. You start making different choices. You start setting boundaries without guilt. You start removing yourself from situations that don't serve you. And yes, it will feel uncomfortable at first. You might feel alone. You might question if you made the right decision. But understand this, just because something feels uncomfortable doesn't mean it's wrong. Sometimes discomfort is a sign that you're growing, that you're stepping into a higher version of yourself. And let me tell you something else. When you stop tolerating less, you create space for more respect, more opportunities, more alignment, because you're no longer filling your life with things that don't match your value. You're no longer settling for what's convenient. You're choosing what's right. And people will notice. Oh, yes, they will. Some will be surprised. Some will be uncomfortable. Some may even try to pull you back into your old patterns. But you have to stay firm, because this is not about them. This is about you. This is about the life you're building and the standard you're setting for yourself. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow. Not by what you say, not by what you hope, but by what you consistently accept or reject. And once you understand that, you realize that your worth has been in your control all along. It was never about waiting for someone else to recognize it. It was about you deciding to honor it. And the moment you truly make that decision, not just in your mind, but in your actions, that's when your value becomes undeniable.